SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
I presume your weekend was a good one?
Oh, yeah.
Got a little chilly, didn't it?
Loved it.
Man, I know you were celebrating that. I went to 8 o'clock Mass yesterday. It was freezing when I got up. You could feel it. You were talking about it in our meeting earlier today.
Oh, yeah. It dropped 10 degrees
Saturday,
in about 5
right?
minutes Saturday night when that front moved through.
That wind flipped around out of the north, and immediately, like, wow. I went outside, had shorts on. I had to go inside for something. I'd been working in my yard. Said, I can't do this anymore. I had to go put some other layers on. Unusual cool front here in the Magnolia State. We did get a sprinkle of rain, but that was about it. I was expecting a little more robust rain event. We could use it, couldn't we? Dry around here. Aren't we fairly below our rainfall totals to this point?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There are parts of the Delta that really need rain.
Man, not good for our farmers. Gosh, our farmers, so vital to our lives, our state's economy, etc. They're just getting besieged from all directions, aren't they? With the high price of diesel, fertilizer, a huge problem as well, that not only the price of it, but there's constrained in the supply of it. And then you got the weather situation with the lack of rain. I'm certainly not an expert on that, but it feels like that all of those factors are producing headwinds, shall we say, for the agriculture industry. And I saw a report this morning, an interview actually with Stephen Moore. He is an economist, used to be in the Council of Economic Advisors and an advisor to President Trump during his first term. He publishes, along with famed economist Art Laffer, you know him from the Ronald Reagan days, the creator of the famed Laffer curve. And they produce a newsletter virtually daily called Unleash Prosperity. And he was talking about the cost of fertilizer and how that could have an impact on our food, of course, because the cost of that is up significantly. And he says that even though, he makes this point, even though the strait could reopen and oil starts flowing again, the bottom line is these guys are buying fertilizer today, right, at current day prices, and that's going to be figured into the ultimate cost of what they're producing using that fertilizer, which includes, of course, lots of crops, but food crops as well. And we may be looking at some significant food inflation, he warns, in the coming months. Things could certainly change, but right now I know everybody's focused on the price of gas, and that's understandable. And, of course, the price of oil could drop immediately upon full reopening of the strait and oil is flowing. That has a fairly short-term positive impact or downward pressure on the price of gas. Fertilizer is a little different. You're buying that today, at these elevated prices, applying that, using it in the agricultural process to produce crops that will be harvested in several months and then sold on the market. Little different situation. So it's not like an immediate turnaround in that realm. Spring planting season well underway, and that's what farmers are facing right now, exploding fertilizer prices. Meanwhile, what's the latest over there? It's hard to keep up with it, honestly. We're open, we're closed, we're open, we're closed, we're bombing, we're bombing you. So the latest that I'm seeing is that the president says negotiations are resuming, and he sent his envoy over to Pakistan. Pakistan, as Barack Obama would say. There were reports that the regime hasn't agreed to attend and participate. But now seems like they have, right? That's the latest. Literally, it's changing on the hour, it feels. But
and it seems like the people that the administration are negotiating with have little or no say over the people attacking ships in the strait.
Correct. That's a problem. They're not exactly their proxies. So the president sent Vice President J.D. Vance and, of course, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, also a veteran of some prior Middle East deal-making.
Like the Abraham Accords.
Exactly. So they're headed again. Now, I've seen conflicting reports. What are you seeing with respect to the vice president? I'm seeing he's going. I'm seeing he's not. What is it?
I saw was he was going.
Okay. Well, I think initially he wasn't included, and I think he was added subsequent. It's kind of happened without a lot of fanfare, without a lot of news. Now, maybe he's physically not going, but participating. That could be something else, another nuance to the situation. But here's the bigger aspect of this. The president says we're either going to have a deal or we're going to blow, what did he say, every power plant and every bridge up or something to that effect. He made that pretty clear. That was a post he made on his Truth Social platform. Was it yesterday or day before? He at first, of course, celebrated a breakthrough where they opened the thing back up, and you've seen the fascinating graphics that depict the strait and all the ships on either side of it, the east and the west. Of course, the strait is a bit north of that, and a big curve, why it's called the strait there, between those two bodies of water. But all the ships are sitting in those big bodies of water approaching the strait. And the strait itself, fairly empty. There's no traffic inside the strait.
Very little traffic.
Yeah.
There were 4 cruise liners that ran the strait at full speed.
Okay.
And there were some reports that they took small arms fire while doing so.
Oh, my gosh.
And then there's the audio from the Indian oil tanker that got authorization. His name was on the list, and they sent out a attack boat and started shooting at him. So it's audio of him on the radio going, "My name is on the list. Stop shooting at me."
Gosh. The president said, "No more Mr. Nice Guy." He said that they're losing, they being Iran, $500 million a day, that this country is losing nothing. But he did say, if we don't get a deal signed, we're going to blow the whole place up. Now, I don't know if that is the case or not. I don't know what to expect. In prior such similar threats, the president has acquiesced because of some changes in the circumstances. Now, I'm looking at a report right now live. Iran refuses to join again. So they're in, they're out, they're in, they're out. This is live right now on the Business Channel, and this is a reporter in Islamabad, Pakistan. And he's reporting Iran refuses to join this new round of peace talks. Is this the craziest thing you've ever seen?
Yeah, because about an hour ago, Al Jazeera was saying that Trump was given the go-ahead to sign everything today.
Yeah, So I guess it's one of those deals situations where when it's signed and delivered and done and in hand, that's about the only situation where a set of circumstances where you could be assured that it's a done deal. Other than that, just don't know. But I'm looking at his Truth Social post. The United States is going to knock out every single power plant and bridge in the country. And the U.S., of course, seized an Iranian ship ahead of these talks, blew a hole in one of them, right? And was in communications with them, telling them, warning them.
Yeah, hit the
stop.
engine room and then boarded it with Marines.
Yeah. Well, they were fairly warm, which is part of our protocol. Fairly warm. Yeah, we're prepared to subject you to disabling fire. That's the exact statement. I don't know if that was from the captain of the American vessel or not. That was probably so, right? Handling the communications. But they didn't heed, and they got a big old bullet. That's what happened. The Marines rappelled onto the ship. We're stepping aside for a break right now. When we return in the Element Well studio, it's Mississippi Chair of the Republican Party, Mike Hurst. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now Mike Hurst, former United States Attorney and also Chairman of the Mississippi Republican Party. Mr. Chairman, good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming in.
Good to see you too, Gerard. Good to be here.
Well, we haven't been able to talk to you in a while. You've been kind of busy with some making a living work, right?
We've had a little bit going on, which has been good though. Good. So.
Good. All right. Well, good to see you. A lot of stuff going on, of course, in our political landscape. This is a midterm year. It's always a critical year. As you know, in our federal government, all 435 seats in the United States House contested every 2 years. This is the midterm sway of that. And then we got 35 or so, I think, Senate seats being contested as well. You know, the first thing that hits me, Mr. Chairman, is the amount of money that is flowing into some of these seats. Not all of them, but some of these seats is mind-boggling. I'm looking at Texas, is one we've talked about quite a bit, where some $122 million spent in the Democrat and Republican primary combined here a couple of months ago. What's the deal with all this money in politics, man?
Well, and we haven't even gotten to the general election.
I know. They'll spend $250 million on the general.
We're still in the runoffs and the primary. So, no, I think it shows that people are really concerned and really interested in these positions, as they should be. I mean, these are our elected representatives. And, we've heard reports here in the state of Mississippi that national Democrats are going to try to pour in millions upon millions of dollars in our general election for the United States Senate, held by our great Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith. But you hear this around the country, and you saw this in 2024. You saw how much money national Democrats pulled together, whether it's from their Hollywood elite or their their buddies in tech or whomever. The media just piled upon the Democrats all this money, but at the end of the day, the American public saw through that. They saw who was best for this country, and it ended up being the Republicans and Donald J. Trump.
So let's talk about the state situation, a key U.S. Senate race. I mean, it's critical that Senator Hyde-Smith be returned to Washington to represent the great state of Mississippi as a Republican and one who generally, for the most part, aligns almost perfectly with the president's agenda. And we know that Scott Colomb would be misaligned or out of alignment with everything that the president's trying to accomplish. But they're spending some money. Here's what concerns me, and I know it does you as well, Mr. Chairman, the turnout.
That's right.
is a concern.
Yeah. If you look at the primaries we just had, Republican and Democrat, what I've been talking to our Republican colleagues, not only in leadership but also at the ground level and the grassroots level, is, the turnout in the Democratic primary for United States Senate in Mississippi just a few weeks ago was almost the same as a Republican turnout, which is very concerning, very concerning. And if you put on top of that the money that the George Soroses or the Senator Schumers are going to pour into our state to try to buy Mississippi, I mean, this is what Democrats do. They try to buy the votes. They try to spend money to get elected office where they know they can't get it otherwise. And I think we're going to see that, unfortunately, come in November. But like you said, fortunately for us and for the great state of Mississippi, Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith has the closest relationship of any United States senator with President Trump. And I think that's going to go a long way.
They talk on a regular
basis. Absolutely. And so with her position not only in Senate Appropriations, Senate Agriculture, but also her relationship with Trump, that is huge benefit to the state of Mississippi. And we can't go backwards to where we have George Soros and Chuck Schumer, a candidate running the state of Mississippi from the United States Senate. That we can't do that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I will say this, for a Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate, not sure I've seen one as active, and maybe that's a result of the funding, as has Scott Cologne been.
I think it probably is. I mean, don't forget, this is a progressive prosecutor. This is someone who ran and was elected as a district attorney in the great state of Mississippi, but didn't actually do his job. Didn't prosecute. He was more concerned with the criminals than he was with the victims. And I think Mississippians need to remember that when they go to the polls. He has all these, videos and social media and stuff, but it doesn't reflect who he actually is and who supports him and who wants him to win more than anything. It's not Mississippians.
That's a great point.
It's non-Mississippians that want him to win.
That's a great point, because the profile, the personality that's projected in the various media content, it really doesn't agree with his ideology,
Absolutely.
His vision, whatever you would call principles that he adheres to. They are not in congruence with what's projected.
It's like we tell our kids, it's not what you say, it's how you act. And so 100%. Go back and look at his actions, look what he stands for, not just what he talks. He can talk a good game. A lot of lawyers can.
Yeah.
But at the same time, go back and look what he's done. And I think the record he has is not one that reflects the values and the principles of Mississippians.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just checked the latest polls for the president, looking at Real Clear Politics, and the average of all the numerous polls that are taken. And those polls do show that they are down somewhat. I think that's to be expected, given the fact that we are right in the throes of a war, and we've got the price of gas and stuff that's really affecting American households. Do you have concerns? Are you talking to your peers about, we got to get this thing behind us and come out of it on an uptrend with a positive note as we approach the midterms?
Yeah, for sure. We've got to come out for an uptrend as we approach the midterms. But what I will tell you, Gerard, is the media and the Democrats want to think this is all gloom and doom, that the president's numbers are just catastrophic and terrible for Republicans, and it doesn't look good. But let me remind your audience that go back and look at how people wrote President Trump off during his first term. And look at all he accomplished. Look how they wrote him off, and he came back. And not only has he done more in the first 18 months than any other president that I can recall in our nation's history, but with a Republican Congress, he's been able to do things like the Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families, Tax Credit Savings Act, things that actually put money back into taxpayers' pockets. These are core fundamental things that we as Republicans believe in, which is the government should not take your money and have all your money. It should be, the money is best spent in the citizen's own pocketbook. And if you just look at the Working Families Tax Savings Act, I think the numbers I saw at least showed that the refund amounts from the IRS for those who just filed their taxes is up almost 11%.
Yeah, 11% on average. That's exactly right. And some 25 million taxpayers, according to the IRS, took advantage of the deduction of the premium portion of overtime. So that provision clearly is yielding benefit. You saw DoorDash grandma delivering food to the president last week, and she was graciously thanking him for the policy regarding tips and
Absolutely.
what that meant to her family.
I've got 2 daughters who work in the service industry, and they love President Trump because of that. So, I mean, this is what we as conservatives believe. We believe that, people who work hard, who play hard, who make and earn a living, they should be able to keep more of that hard-earned money that they've gotten.
100%.
And that's what our state leaders have done, and I think now, finally, with the leadership of President Trump, we're seeing our federal leaders do the same.
And, if the Democrats would help, we could make those provisions permanent.
Oh, God.
If they just join in.
They're too concerned with, illegal aliens, transgender sex changes. I mean, it's just absolutely insane, the off-beaten path of culture wars that the Democrats have gone down. I mean, look, I love that Bernie Sanders and AOC and, Mayor Mamdani are the leaders now
exactly
of the Democratic Party.
They're the face of the
because
party.
It shows you how crazy the left has gone. I didn't think they could go further left, and, man, every day it seems like they just keep surprising me.
It's a hold my beer moment every single day, isn't
That's
it?
right.
Like, let me show you how much crazier I can get.
And again, if we as conservatives, if we just get back to our foundational principles and values that are reflected in our party's platform, I think they line up with the American public better than any other party that's out there. Smaller government, strong military, pro-law enforcement, protecting the institution that made this country, whether it be the families, states, things like that. If we get back to those things, America will be great again.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there's several states, to your point there, with Democratic leadership that are considering imposing wealth taxes. Wealth taxes. They've never met a tax they didn't like or couldn't implement. It's just mind-boggling to me. There's about 10, I think, that have various forms of legislation on the
and I don't know if you saw Mayor Mamdani's video where he says, I'm taxing the rich. I mean, this is absolutely
celebrating
insane.
it.
They've obviously never gone to an economics class before. Maybe they skipped that in college.
We can keep talking. If
Absolutely.
You can hang around. We got GOP Chairman Mike Hurst in the Element Well studio coming right back.
25 or 624.
From the Seabrook.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. We are visiting with Mike Hurst. He, of course, is a former United States attorney, also serves as the current chairman of the Mississippi Republican Party. So, Mr. Chairman, what are you hearing from other GOP chairmen across the country with respect to the political landscape, specifically related to the midterms?
Well, I mean, obviously people are gearing up. One of the things that the RNC chairman, Joe Gruters, has directed us state chairs to do is to select individuals who would lead up election integrity efforts in every state and also grassroots efforts in every state, and trying to do a little more coordination among the states. So, for instance, we have the referendum in Virginia tomorrow on the redistricting, and a lot of people from all over the country are actually helping our good Commonwealth of Virginia out to try to make sure voters know the disingenuity in that referendum, what the Democrats are trying to do, which is just purely gerrymandering to try to get more congressional. Yeah, and it's over the top. And so even the way they constructed the ballot measure is just over the top.
Okay,
posturing,
didn't know that.
Posturing in terms of like fairness and making sure that things are fair in the next election. So a lot of phone calls will be made over the next few hours. A lot of door knocking, things like that, and it's coming not from just Virginians themselves, but other Republicans and conservatives from around the country helping the Virginians try to overturn that referendum this tomorrow.
I mean, mean, that literally could mean the difference between Republicans or Democrats having the majority in the House.
Yeah. Yeah, and
come to that.
Yeah, and we're seeing that. Obviously, redistricting is a hot topic right now. We're waiting on the United States Supreme Court to come down with this decision in the Louisiana case, but hopefully they will get that right, because what we have right now, while the Voting Rights Act was well-intentioned and it was useful for a time.
Sure.
What it's being done now is it's being weaponized by the left and by Democrats to try to make sure that they can racially gerrymander, which is completely against our Constitution to decide these things based on race. But I just finished litigating one of these cases in DeSoto County, and the way the plaintiffs approach these, they come at it as to how can we draw a majority-minority district. It's all about race for them. It's not about politics. And as you know, Gerard, I mean, DeSoto County is the only county out of the 82 in the entire state of Mississippi where we have a Republican African-American sheriff and a Republican state House member. And so, for them to say that they can't get elected in DeSoto County because of their race, no, you can't get elected because you're a Democrat, and it's a Republican county.
That's a great point. I had the pleasure of being with both of those gentlemen last week. We all spoke at an event the DIG PAC held up there, fantastic event. It's a great point. But the voting rights, Mr. Chairman, okay, so you have the right to vote. We're protecting that. We're guaranteeing that. Doesn't mean you have the right to your candidate.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, oh, yeah, these voter rights means I get to live in a district that's all gerrymandered up such that the candidate that I support is elected.
Yeah, it's even worse than that. You don't have a right to the race of your candidate.
That's true.
That's what they're trying
to do.
Yeah, and they're trying, DeSoto County is a very diverse county. Yeah. They're trying to make it out as there are certain pockets that the supervisors divide. That's not the case at all.
Yeah.
These districts have been around for years. They tried to do what was minimally necessary to make sure everyone has equal representation, one person, one vote, and that's what they did. They followed the guidance. They did what they were supposed to do, and then they get punished for it by these national groups that come in to weaponize the Voting Rights Act. This is not what local DeSoto Countyans, black or white, want. These are all mostly out-of-state individuals or those who had just moved into DeSoto County recently trying to change things, and sadly, Gerard, it's based upon race.
Well, let's be honest. There's no district in the state that's more tricked up than Benny Thompson's to ensure that he stays in there. It's all about the same deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so your listeners know, almost every single time that I get on a plane and Congressman Thompson's on a plane, I just want you to know your taxpayer dollars are being used to pay for first-class seats on an airplane ridden by Congressman Benny Thompson.
You mean you don't think he comes out of his pocket for the premium?
I mean, I can't believe in probably the poorest congressional district in the nation, and this guy's represented them for 30 years, and sadly, he's done nothing except enrich himself.
33 years he's been there. 1993. Yeah. It's just flabbergasting. Here at home, we've got some of the statewide races starting to take shape a little bit.
Is there a statewide race coming up sometime?
27. Seems like forever away, but folks seem to be getting out of the gate, I would say, a little early, maybe.
Yeah, you want me to count off who's not running? That might be a shorter list.
Might be easier.
I mean, I jokingly say that, but I think honestly, Gerard, this shows the depth and the background of our candidates. I mean, we have incredible candidates in the state.
A lot of qualified candidates.
And I encourage all of them to run. People don't like the fact that we have such big contests and we're going to have such big primaries. I think that's a good thing. Yeah. I think the more we talk about our principles, the more we talk about our message, the more that the citizens can see different candidates, and it's refinement by fire. And I think these primaries are where it's at. And yes, we will have to spend money, and yes, they'll have, but we as the party, we stay neutral in these primaries. But at the end of the day, to me, it's encouraging and it's hopeful for our state that we have so many candidates with the experience and the principles to be able to run for political office. I think it's going to be a great thing in 2027. And I encourage all our Republicans to run.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to point this out. I know you and Celeste personally as well as professionally and in this world of politics. There are people out there, and you know this, that have alleged that the party discourages people to run because they have favorite candidates.
Right.
I've never personally witnessed or heard that. Can you just address that?
We look. I know,
am I right? You hear it too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hear that we at the Mississippi Republican Party are in some type of ivory tower and we hand pick or hand select. That's absolutely not the case. We do go out and try to help identify candidates in maybe areas where we don't have a candidate. Sure. But when it comes to a race that's got 2 or more candidates, we at the party, our bylaws required. I'm a stickler for the law. We absolutely stay out of it, and we encourage as many Republicans who are qualified to run. The only thing that concerns me from a party standpoint is what we are seeing around the country right now, and I would argue we're beginning to see a little in Mississippi, are individuals who have no background in the Republican Party. In fact, individuals who have background in the Democratic Party. Okay. And not just a background, but a strong advocacy for extreme left progressive positions, all of a sudden trying to persuade people that they're now Republican. Okay. Now, I'm all for people who switch over. I'm for that stuff. But at the end of the day, it goes back to what we said at the very beginning of this conversation. It's not what you say. It's how you act. And 100%. That's the only way we can judge people, and I think that's the way the party should judge people. It's not based upon how good of a speech you give or how well you speak or how well you talk. It's what have you done for conservative principles and the Republican Party. And I think we're beginning to see that around the country. When Democrats realize they can't win in Republican areas, they just try to switch over the Republican Party, and we need to be vigilant against that.
Yeah, I mean, if someone's genuine and authentic in that, and they've had an epiphany, said this just didn't work, and they've just jumped the shark, and that is happening a lot, well, then we want to embrace and welcome them, right?
We're the party of the big tent. Okay. But at the end of the day, what I tell people is the tent has poles. We have boundaries. We have to make sure that people who are actually professing to be Republicans are in fact Republicans. And again, it has to be objective standards. Alabama does a good job of it. Okay. They look at how you voted in the past in Republican versus Democrat primaries, how you've publicly supported Democrats or Republicans, things like that that are objective, that are not subjective, to determine who can and can't run in Republican primaries. And I think that's something that we at the party should and are looking at.
Well, the good news is virtually everyone has some sort of digital footprint now.
That's right.
It's pretty hard to conceal what you may have had in your past or said in your past or positions you've taken. And maybe you've changed on those and evolved on those. Well, then explain that.
Absolutely. And that's perfectly fine. I mean, President Reagan, he was a Democrat at the very beginning, but before he ran for office, years before he ran for office, he had a complete change. And he will tell you that, he didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left him.
He originated that statement.
That's right.
Honestly. Yeah. So, well, I agree with you. We have a large universe of highly qualified candidates across the spectrum of offices for Republicans here in the state of Mississippi. And honestly, for the most part, I'd say, Mr. Chairman, they're fairly closely aligned on their policy positions, and they do align with our platform.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like old mentor mindset. It's not necessarily what you say, it's how you say it. It's all in your delivery.
100%.
So we have great leaders in this state who believe in our party's platform, but sometimes maybe they don't communicate it the right way or the way that it should be received. But one thing I'm proud of our party is at the beginning of every legislative session, we put a copy of the Republican Party platform on every single legislator's chair to make sure they're reminded this is why you run with an R beside your name. This is what we believe, and this is what we hope you will honor at the Mississippi legislature.
Mike Hurst, former U.S. Attorney, current chair of the Mississippi Republican Party. Always good to have you in studio, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it. Thanks for all you do for our state and our party.
Absolutely.
We're coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Nowadays, you're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. The C Spire text line 601-879-4395. So you were just giving me an update there on the break about a bomb threat?
Yeah, another suspicious package has got the Hinds County Courthouse evacuated for the second time in as many weeks.
Yeah, it just happened last week, wasn't it? 7 or 8 days ago? Golly. What in the world is going on? Ridiculous. On the C Spire text line, Paula Meridian says, well, I guess Benny's not really that smart because he hasn't enriched himself a whole lot, but his policies definitely show he doesn't care about the benefits for his voters. I hear you, Paula. A couple of things I'll say is, officially, what Benny has filed with the clerk of the House, which is a requirement of all members of the House, they must file their financial statements. And, you know, I've talked about this before on the show, Rhino. It's like got this huge range. Like, what do you have in terms of this, for example? And it's like between 10,000 and a million or something. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's very nonspecific. His actual net worth, according to his official filings. Now, I'm not saying this is a reflection of reality. I'm just saying this is what he's filed. When I looked at it about a year ago, he has a net worth of about $750,000. And most of that comes from his home and land and so forth, not cash, liquid assets. I have no idea whether or not that's accurate. I'm just telling you what officially he's filed. Now, if he falsified those records, that'd be a problem. What about Ilhan Omar? What in the heck happened there? Like $30 million to less than $100,000? Oh, just made an error. What? So you see the problem with those filings. And my suggestion would be to Ron Eller, who is going to represent the Republicans in the general election for Congressional District 2 in the state of Mississippi, taking on Benny Thompson, the incumbent, is I do a little research on that. Because if he's truly falsifying his records about his personal financial condition, that's a big old problem. And I'm not saying he's not capable of doing that, because I believe he is. So I know it's widely believed that he's enriched himself, and I'm not saying he hasn't. I'm just sharing what's official with the clerk of the House. And with respect, Paul, to helping his voters, I agree. But here's what would help the Delta in that district is economic development. And yes, I do think a member of Congress, the House and the Senate, could be key players and contributors to that effort. But is Benny a person, Rhino, that could effectively recruit business into that district? I don't feel like it.
Probably not.
Because it's always about Benny. That's why. He doesn't think about how can I use my office to benefit my district by approaching some businesses, I'm talking from large corporations on down across the country, about making an investment in that district. That's how you improve the quality of life there. Not by just with a bunch of lip service that just gets you reelected interminably, it seems. I'm for you. I'm fighting for you. No, you're not. It's, I think, maybe the poorest area in the country and on the decline, losing population, etc. Yeah, seems like you'd be a little more interested in that. But you know the problem, just like all Democrats. They're hyper-focused on Donald Trump. That's all they care about, is denouncing him and condemning him. They get some sort of perverse political expediency out of that, rather than actually trying to accomplish things and produce value for their district. No, it's all about, okay, it looks like if I just bash Donald Trump, I got a better chance of getting elected. That's all they care about. Period. End of story. Truly is incredible. Dan in Hattiesburg says, even if Iran signs an agreement, it's only worth the piece of paper it's written on. I agree. Dan. These people cannot be trusted. But it would give you something that's official, I guess, where you could say, well, you broke it, and therefore these are the consequences. We're responding on that basis rather than it being a sort of an unprovoked response. So I do think there's value in that, but I agree with you. It cannot be trusted. Ben from Madison makes a good point. He said, so it's okay for Texas to redistrict but not Virginia? I'm sorry, but that is very inconsistent. We all knew when Texas did it, every blue state would try to do the same, but for their own interest, that is the main reason I oppose redistricting for all states in between censuses. It's a great point, Ben. I hear you. I have some thoughts about that. We'll share on the other side of this break. Fox News, SuperTalk News next, and then hour 2 of Middays. It's Monday. That means Ricky Matthews, SuperTalk Outdoors at 12:05. Hour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Welcome to the show that challenges you to think deeply and look beyond political posturing. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays, kicking off a brand new week here from the Element Wealth Studio. We thank you for joining us today. The Dow has pared its losses from earlier, now down 75 points. It has been down as much as 250 during the session. It was down 400 in pre-market. And the NASDAQ, in the meantime, has actually extended its losses a bit. Dow down 144. What's the funny money looking like there, Rhino? I think it was down a little bit today as well. It's in, the $75,000?
Yeah, it's
range?
been hovering around there. Let's see what the most up-to-date amount is. 75.5.
Okay. Kind of hanging out in that.
Down about 0.5%.
Yep.
Day to day.
The president warning Iran of severe consequences if they don't come to the table and sign a deal. And I'm not sure exactly what time it is over there right now. They're probably, 8-10 hours ahead of us. And so you would think that that whole process is getting underway, and maybe we'll know something here.
Ceasefire's got a little over 24 hours left.
Okay. And Iran now is vowing retaliation after the United States seized on a cargo ship. What'd you say? They were warning them for hours.
Some reports said there were up to 6 hours of warnings, whether it be light signals or radio broadcast or loudspeaker broadcasts. And then finally I want to say they used their 5-inch gun to disable the engine room.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Ben, to your comment, Ben from Madison sent one earlier that we read, basically says we should be consistent here, that, hey, if Texas can redistrict and redraw the lines to produce more Republican seats because it is a Republican-controlled state, then turnabout's fair play with respect to Virginia doing the same. And when I looked at it, Rhino, it looked like Virginia, I believe, has 11 House seats. In this map that's being proposed, and there's a ballot measure for it, would mean 10 for the Democrats and 1 for Republican, right?
Yeah.
Would change the balance there. You know, and Ben, I agree with you from the perspective that I think it's just kind of discouraging to see that there's so much invested in exactly how we draw these lines to achieve a certain outcome. I think the difference is what Chairman Hurst was talking about on the program in the last hour is when it's done for the purposes of race, to produce a racial outcome. Well, if we draw it this way, we're going to end up with a black congressman, for example. Or it shouldn't be the case. You know, I started thinking, Ben, maybe we ought to consider just throwing some problem to a random number generator and let it go draw districts without any regard for any of that. Just you don't consider the demographics or the political persuasions of the people on this street and that street. Literally, it does get down to that level. And just let it be totally random. Break it up into equal increments of, 725,000, I think, is roughly what a House seat represents today. Instead of all these polygons that get drawn up that just look crazy at the end of the day. Where I live, I think I've talked about this. I live in a cul-de-sac, and the three houses, including mine at the end of the cul-de-sac, we're in a state Senate district that's different than the two on the other side of my driveway, literally. And that's just the way the line is drawn right there to include those three houses in the back of that cul-de-sac. And it's not what's crazy about it is it's not like adjacent to that are a lot more houses and residences. It's undeveloped land. That is kind of fishy, isn't it? A little bit. But maybe we should just come up with some method to make it just totally random, and nobody could complain about that. I do agree that it's not right, as the chairman said, when those lines are drawn again on strictly a racial basis. That's discrimination. It's no different than the complaints I've made about the city of Jackson engaged in, I believe, racial discrimination in its procurement policies. You got to have a certain amount of minority participation to even be considered. And the vendor that has the most typically ends up winning because of that. Not because they're the best value for the taxpayer for that particular procurement. And we can't get the dang legislature to pass. I've been more than upset about that. Can't get that through for fear of retaliation, I believe. Oh, my gosh, they'd go crazy. Well, okay, but it's the right thing to do. You're condoning, you're sanctioning discrimination by race is what you're doing by not acting on that. And if you look at every Democrat city in America, same thing. Same dadgum thing. It's scratching the back of their buddies, their cronies, which they get benefit from. And I seriously doubt that it's limited to just the benefit of winning re-election or staying in office. There's probably some other benefits as well to that dynamic, which is just a big problem. It's what people really dislike so much about government is that kind of cronyism that goes on often behind closed doors and just causes problems for everyone and costs the taxpayers money and produces worse outcome. Other than that, it's okay. Speaking of money, the Congress is working on the funding process for 2027. You see, the fiscal year ends September 30th, and they're all back under the dome trying to hammer out what would be 12 appropriations bills to fund the federal government for fiscal year 27. Keep in mind that the president has already submitted his proposed budget that is in accordance with law, and that includes a $500 billion increase in the Department of War funding. That would take it to about $1.5 trillion. Man, I sure do wish somebody would hold them accountable, Rhino. You've talked about it many times, for their inability to pass a simple audit. Where is all that stuff we gave you money for? Shouldn't we do that first before we sign up for another $500 billion? That's pretty common sense, isn't it?
And it's not even like they can go to Congress and go, there's $500 billion being used on things I can't talk about openly. They just don't know where it went. Like, it makes sense that the government has money it has to spend on things that it can't talk about in public. That makes sense when the government's that big and they're in charge of that much.
Yep.
What doesn't make sense is they can't account for any of it no matter what it's being used for.
That's exactly right. It's unacceptable. We should not accept that. I don't care if it's the military or who it is. They shouldn't be exempt from just that simple transparency and accountability. That's common sense, man. No big deal. If he could bring in business talking about Benny Thompson, he would have done it years ago. Agree. First, I'd say he doesn't strike me as a person who's capable of having a meaningful, productive conversation with business decision makers, because he's always thinking about what can they do for me, right? Never about what can we do to get you to make an investment in my district. What do you need from us to facilitate that, to make that happen? And I'm not talking about giving away the farm here. I'm just talking about what are the criteria for you to make such an investment. Let's address that. I doubt that conversation's ever occurred.
Well, I mean, if the scuttlebutt's to be believed, there's a particular price point you have to hit before he'll even open his door.
There's an ante one must place. I've heard that as well. And that's disgusting. Alan in the Delta says, Benny wants the Delta to stay like it is, in my opinion. Politics has become a profession. I agree, and you're seeing that across the country and in our state to a great extent. You see a lot of folks that just keep on moving up the political ladder and constantly pursuing the next office, and they've made a career out of it. That's not what the founders envisioned. That is not the way this country was envisioned to be governed by career politicians. But, man, we sure have gotten to that point with so many getting in and staying in forever and ever. Even if they move up to another office, you're still in political office. You're still pursuing the next rung on the ladder. Maybe it's time to rotate the crops. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
Hello, I'm
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. Derek in Greenwood says, talking about Benny, he's doing everything for the people who elect him. Republicans won't help because it's not enough of them in the district. Well, I think that you'd be surprised, Derek, at the amount of support Republicans would provide. And I think Ron Eller is a guy that's going to get out and do a little grassroots campaigning, and that could boost him. He has an effective message. But I will agree that, Rhino, you got to appeal to the people who have historically voted for this guy. It's cycle after cycle. Like, give them a compelling reason to flip. Forget Democrat, Republican. Just Benny versus Ron in this case. Give them a compelling reason why they should support you. And I would focus on that and the contrast there, which should be fairly easy to make because Benny's an ideologue. I mean, he's in the same vein with AOC and Liz Warren and Sanders and that whole group. And I would attach him to them. And then I'd use Trump. I thought Trump, this was a masterful line. Do you remember this, Rhino? He said, what do you got to lose? It's certainly not doing anything for you now. Try something different. You keep putting the same person up there and the situation's not getting better. It's getting worse. What do you got to lose? The president was right. He was absolutely right when he appealed to the black community. And that was primarily from his first term, as you remember. That's exactly right, man. And I think he did garner a fair amount of support from that community and just minorities in general who I think are put out with the Democrats and Democrat policy. And I also believe, to a great extent, I'm not sure how you feel about this, Rhino, that the way they've leaned in to some of this social ideology, I don't think suits them. I'm not trying to speak on their behalf. Please don't misunderstand me there. But some of that stuff's just crazy that I'm not sure they agree with, especially in a more conservative state such as Mississippi, where even the Democrats are more conservative than they are, say, a New York or a California or an Illinois Democrat. You know, a more they're not Tim Walz people in Minnesota, which has become crazy land. What's the one that won? What's her name? I might not pronounce it right. Meha, that just won a special election in, was it Virginia? Or is it New Jersey? Meja is her name. And has a progressive policy agenda. Help me out there. What office did she just ran for Congress and just won in a special election?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was New Jersey or Virginia, but you just look at their policies. It's Medicare for all, expand the court, of course, they want to do that. Tax the wealthy, abolish ICE, free college and debt cancellation, transgender treatment, paid sick leave, affordable child care, fair wages. I mean, that's their platform. That plus hate Donald Trump. And again, their goal, their dream, their agenda is to morph, evolve government into this provider of all these various services that really aren't core to the function of government. It's not what government's supposed to be doing. And I applaud the president for a couple of weeks ago saying, hey, we're fighting a war and we're trying to protect the country. We can't keep paying for all this stuff like we are now. He's absolutely right. That's why we're in debt the way we are. Because people feel that directly. Oh, good, the government's paying for my child care. The government's paying for my insurance. The government they're taxing those dirty, greedy, mean old rich people. And the government's going to give me free college and forgive my student loan. Look, it's powerful. It is a powerful drug. And I am concerned about Democrats right now with various tax proposals in the House, in the Senate, talking about removing even more people off the tax rolls, just shifting even more of the burden to the higher income people in this country. And people are looking at that saying, yeah, I want that, not really considering the second order thinking of how detrimental that would be to us long term, to their children and their grandchildren. Yeah, it may look good to you today because you're not sending a little money to the federal treasury, but tomorrow it's going to be a lot worse because of these dumb policies.
But the bear at Yellowstone looks hungry. He needs my sandwich.
Oh, my gosh.
And the same federal government that when it's run by Democrats can't stop themselves from giving away your tax dollars, that same federal government employs the park rangers, and the park rangers know if you feed the bears, they become dependent, 100%. And it becomes dangerous.
And that's exactly where we are. It's mind-boggling to look at how our government has evolved into this provider of all these programs. And then they start talking about taxing those wealthy so we can create more programs. As if that's a problem now. I mean, it's not like they ever thought about, well, we don't have enough money for that. No, they just if they're in charge, they're making more programs. They're spending more money on those programs. And this idea that, oh, yeah, when I get in, I'm going to go tax those wealthy people so we can have more money for that. Dude, it's $2 trillion deficits today. You don't have any regard for the amount coming in. Zero. To you, taxation it is a tool to attack the wealthy to extract a pint of blood from those, or more, honestly, from those who are more economically successful, and to just engender this class warfare. You get some sort of perverse political benefit out of that. It's punishing success. It's not about raising more money. This is irrelevant. If it were, we wouldn't have $2 trillion deficits and $39 trillion in debt. I would like to think we actually make spending decisions and budget on that basis, like we do in our households, like we do in the private sector. We don't have an unlimited supply of money like the federal government does. And while we're talking about that, the state of Mississippi, and all the states, but the state of Mississippi in particular, because we receive more towards our public dollar spending than any other state as a percentage, and that's the federal government, I think, is fixing to get serious about cutting the amount of money that goes to states. And one thing in particular is conversion of the Medicaid program to a block grant structure. If it went to that model, better get ready, folks, because that means that the Medicaid program in Mississippi would lose, I believe, significant funding from the federal government, and then the responsibility for the funding of the program would fall more on the state than it already does, and that would be a problem that we're going to have to address. I really do think that's coming. There's some, at least, buzz about that possibility in a Reconciliation 2.0 bill that's being considered in Washington right now. So the last year, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, that was considered Reconciliation 1.0 for the 2-year term, is the way they do it, of the Congress. But there's talk about a Reconciliation 2.0, and there's some discussion of perhaps converting or phasing in of a block grant structure into the Medicaid program, which would have an effect on every state, including the state of Mississippi, where we get about $7 billion a year from the federal government to run Medicaid. And that could decline precipitously under a block grant structure, something just to be aware of. And then, of course, there's significant education funding we get from the federal government. And keep in mind that, according to my math, about 46 cents of every dollar in those areas is actually borrowed. So we're literally borrowing money to send down to the states to run Medicaid and education and all the other things that the federal government sends money here for. I picked those two because those are by far the largest component of federal revenues that are pushed down to the states. But half of it's borrowed, and we're just racking up debt to run Medicaid and educate our kids. That makes no sense. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is
on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays from the Element Wealth studio. Cruising right through the final half hour of Monday's show. Ricky Matthews, Super Talk Outdoors, comes your way at 12:05 today. So, interesting question on the C Spire text line from Mose. Actually, This is not the question I was looking for. Let me get Moses' comment. Gerard, imagine how crazy the left will go when the SCOTUS deems Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act unconstitutional. Yeah. Oh man, they're trying to manipulate that and sort of fit it into this narrative for their own benefit and not really pay attention to the purpose there. The original intent, I think, is of the text has been lost, and they're trying to contextualize it to the way they deem fit, is one way to put it. The question I want to get to is there a legal reason that California and Virginia put redistricting up for a vote, a statewide vote, before acting, and Texas did not? As I recall, there was a movement in California, an organization that wanted to preempt the legislature and put something together to get a measure on the ballot for the people to decide. That was 4 or 5 years ago, as I recall. And I just think that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to strip the legislature. But the ballot initiatives on those states, as you know, are very generous in that they can do a lot of stuff through the citizen-initiated process. And I think that there's just groups that got together and said, yeah, we're going to push this on through. I don't know that there's a legal reason. I haven't researched that. If there are laws
it comes down to each state.
Yeah.
Each state determines within the federal guidelines how they will redistrict.
Yeah. Exactly. So, but I don't know that I don't know if their legislatures have the authority to redistrict in those states as well, if it requires a ballot measure.
Most states, it requires the legislature to start the ball rolling.
Okay. So, yeah, I think this is going to continue to get lots of attention for sure. And it's really because of how razor thin the balance of power is. I mean, every seat counts, even in a body of 435. Usually that's not the case. There's some breathing room for the party in charge, but we've become so evenly polarized in this country that what's the margin now? 2 seats, I think, in the House. So it could, that's as tight as maybe it's ever been in our history. And so you think about trying to corral all those members to push legislation through, even in the same party, assuming you can get consensus, that's just a hard deal. That's a tall order, and that is the job of the Speaker of the House and his whip and so forth, and that's just a big task ahead of them. On the C Spire text line, people vote for who pays them or who they think is paying them. Sure does seem like it quite a bit. Why are businesses getting tariff refunds when consumers pay the tariffs? That process seems to be underway, and it gets complicated from Thomas and Greenwood. Well, that's obviously very complicated, Thomas, but consumers didn't send checks to the federal government. Businesses do. Now, they could probably earn some goodwill with their customers if they somehow redistributed some of what the government returns to them as a refund for tariffs paid back to their customers. That would be a very difficult thing to do, obviously. And they could come up with something smart from a marketing and branding perspective, I believe, to earn some goodwill if they do receive some money in the form of a refund from the federal government to customers. I'm sure they're in the boardrooms and in the marketing departments of those big corporations, perhaps thinking about that right now. One thing that we could do with respect to fertilizer is we could rescind or certainly pause the tariffs to drive the cost down of fertilizer. We were talking about that earlier in the program, how the farmers are buying that stuff now. So even if we get through this war, the strait gets reopened, the price of oil drops down to close to where it was before the bomb started flying, the fertilizer's already been purchased. Now, some did contract for the purchase before the price went up sharply, and maybe they're in good shape, but others did not. But that's just an idea, is to maybe pause the tariffs on fertilizer to try to drive the cost down. The state of Indiana is actually going to pause its state excise tax on fuel while the price of gas is elevated. Perhaps the state of Mississippi, wink, wink, hint, hint, should consider doing the same. Maybe, Rhino, that's what they should have done last week when they came back and did nothing. Give the taxpayers a little relief. They could have extended for some period of time. Just pause the fuel taxes. Right? That could have helped. Where are we now? 20 cents, 21 cents, I think. Because we increased it in equal increments of 3 cents a year starting last year. We got increment 2 coming up this year. Weren't we at 18, 17, 18, something like that, prior to that increase? So my math says we're at
21.4 until July 1, then it'll be 24.4.
All right, that's what I thought. So 21 cents off the top per gallon certainly help right now, wouldn't it? Now, I get it that means less money coming into the Department of Transportation to take care of our roads and bridges, but just on a temporary basis. Maybe what the state could do is, instead of sending all that project money out for all these crazy projects across the municipal and county landscape, maybe they're tapping the CapEx fund for that, our reserves, not coming out of the general fund. Maybe we could send that to the Department of Transportation to offset this reduction of fuel taxes. Everybody would feel benefit from that. Just an idea. Of course, they're all done now. They're gone. They're on summer vacation, right? Just something to think about while we're all getting hammered at the pump, and not sure that's going to change dramatically anytime soon. On the C Spire text line, the white liberal is the greatest enemy of America and of the black man, Malcolm X. Truer words were never spoken. Black folks who collaborate with these demented weirdos are nothing but loyal house Negroes and Uncle Toms. Yeah, I hear you, but no, I definitely agree that there's perhaps no more despicable an ilk in this country than the elitist white American in the world, liberal, no doubt about it, who, of course, possess an amazing amount of hubris and think they know everything and know better what's in your best interest than you do. I agree with that, and I do think that they're enemies. Speaking of, 3 of them are joining together now to try to push through a complete moratorium on any new data centers. That's Liz Warren, Bernie Sanders, and AOC. They're joining forces to push through legislation, literally, that would prohibit any data center development and construction in this country. And China's over there laughing their rears off at us, at that idea, at that thought. And they won't tell you, like we've said before, it's not because of any concerns of impact on the environment or just the community in general. But no, not for that, because the people may make some money off all this. They can't have that. And they're right. There is going to be a lot of money made off of it, because this is the piece that I don't think the left gets. You create wealth by improving productivity. It's the only way. It's the amount of output per human input hour. That's how you create wealth. And it's innovation. I'm not talking about just computer technology. I'm talking about through the decades, through the centuries. It's human thought, innovation, invention. That's what constantly improves productivity and thus the quality of life and wealth. And all you're doing is standing in the way of that. But they don't care, because I guess it appeases their political wackos more than anything else. Oh my God, they're taking up all the water, which is complete horse hockey. We use more water flushing our toilets than data centers do. They won't sit down and actually have that conversation or do that simple math. Yeah, can't let them make money. We're stepping aside for a break. Final segment on this Monday is next.
Oh, though it's always crowded, you still can find some room. for broken-hearted lovers to cry. It's so lonely, baby. Well, they're so lonely. They'll be so lonely they could die.
Poly up of Mississippi.
Are we going to do this?
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio on the C Spire text line. This is all for the gas and oil producer to make back their money they lost over last year when fuel was down. Well, just keep in mind they don't control the price of it. It's set by the market and traders in the market futures, except for that which is sold directly, subverting the market, such as Iran to China. That would be an example where they bypass the traditional markets for that transaction. But in general, they really don't control it, and that's something that Joe Biden never understood. Well, here's how they do control it, as you know, Rhino. It's by the amount they produce. If they go out and produce more, well, that drives supply up, and that drives the price down. So it's completely related to and grounded in the old-fashioned Econ 101 supply and demand dynamics. So somebody's making their money. Well, sure, that's on the C-Spire tax level. Yeah, it's true. When the price is elevated because there is a constraint. And remember, this is all futures. There's a constraint, absolutely, that falls to the bottom line. And unless there's an increase in the cost of producing the oil that is being traded and sold on the market. But the same is true when the price is depressed. Then they don't fare too well. Now, I remember talking a lot about how Joe Biden always misrepresented the net income of the oil companies because he never would refer to the period of time when they absolutely got hammered and lost billions of dollars when the price was depressed with all the COVID stuff. And that endured for a while, and then it turned around. In general, it's a 8% net income industry business. Contrast that to NVIDIA with a 62, 63% net income. Apple, all the big tech guys, tremendously higher net operating income percentage than those older guard industries for sure. But that's just the way the markets work. I think the alternative is government intervening and controlling supply, demand, and price. That would be socialism. Other than that, it's subject to the whims of the market. I was looking at another one of these social media posts. This one is from a from a site. Say no to data centers. And they go on and on about the electricity being used. Like, do we not have the ability in this country to build more electrical generation? We just can't do that. So what did we do before we had electricity? We had none. And then, my gosh, we're going to build houses out there and they're going to consume whatever electricity. Right? Isn't that kind of what happened? We're going to build this new factory and it's going to consume more electricity. What do? We went and built electrical power plants because that makes the quality of life better. It's like these people think it's like impossible for us to produce more power. We can do it better, more efficiently, with fewer inputs, less physical footprint than ever because of technology. You know what? Think about it, Ron. It's because of the technology that is produced in the data centers that allows the power company to produce more power with less input. You know what I'm saying? That's some serious second-order thinking. It's the truth, though. You don't think they're using AI and other technologies that are being hosted in data centers, including to just run the company? I don't think they get that. Man,
there's a lot of things they don't do.
That's unbelievable. We should embrace this. Now, that doesn't mean embrace it in a way that harms people and harms the environment. No, but can we not do both at the same time? Can we not continue to progress and pursue that agenda while being good stewards of the environment and community? And that's kind of what we did in the country for the last 100 years or so. I think so. Should we have not invented the light bulb because it's going to require electricity? Oh, we invented electricity. I forgot about that. We used our God-given brains to do that, to make life better. My opinion is that's what God expects. I gave you these tools. Go use them. Make things better. You know, something that's exciting, and I know you come from that world, are you seeing some of the breakthroughs we're having on cancer treatment right now? It's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it? And I know a lot of people may not like this, but there's some actual development of vaccines against breast cancer, right? That's pretty close. It's amazing. Guess what they're using to develop all that? Data centers. Where else do you get the information? Because information and knowledge is power. It's next to human life, maybe the most valuable asset on the planet is information, is knowledge. Human life, number one, no doubt. Always. Number two, information. We're out of here today with Deep Purple bumping us out. Coming back with you tomorrow. Rhino's off. Stay safe, and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi media production.